But first, victims of a psychopathic prison guard who subjected child inmates to vicious beatings and brutal abuse have told ITV News about their long fight for justice. Patrick Devaney led a reign of terror at Eastwood Park Juvenile Detention Centre in Gloucestershire during the 1970s and 80s. A court heard how he used cricket bats, a metal ruler and a rubber hose he called Mabel to inflict punishments. Now 81, he was finally convicted for his crimes and was today sentenced to 3.5 years in jail. A judge described him as cruel, evil and the worst kind of bully. Well, after years of silence, 3 survivors have bravely spoken to ITV News about Devaney's sadistic abuse. They told Robert Murphy about the horror they faced and how it stayed with them all their lives.
I'm Paul Brealey. I was 14 when I went to Eastwood Park Detention Centre on the 1st of May 1969.
I am Ian Llewellyn and I was sent to Eastwood Park age 16. 1976.
I'm Alan Andrews. I went there age 14. March 15th, 1977. We all knew he was guilty.
This is the first time these 3 former inmates have met. They went to Eastwood Park Detention Centre at different times for different minor offences. But their recollections of the regime have chilling similarities.
As soon as you walked in the door, you knew you'd entered the gates of something because it was just a huge shock to the system. You were screamed at, shouted at, pushed, prodded. We were made to strip naked.
14 years old?
14 years old. We were put in a bath, a hot bath with carbolic soap.
I was a child and it just traumatised me. So a switch went off inside me to shut myself down.
From then on?
From then, there was a couple of events in the detention centre which lasted for another 16 years where a switch went and said no one's seeing Alan again.
From the mid-1960s for 30 years, Eastwood Park near Bristol was a detention centre for boys aged between 14 and 17. Now, many of them remember it being a brutal regime, but of all the officers who worked here, one stood out. Physical training instructor Patrick Devaney. A recent trial heard he organised a game so violent it was called Murder Ball. He would pit older boys against younger ones, big ones against smaller ones. He racially abused black teenagers. Devaney is now 81 years old. He was sentenced at Bristol Crown Court today. Earlier this year, a jury convicted him of misconduct in a public office for assaults against 22 teenagers on his watch, including Alan, Ian and Paul.
Devaney was a complete psychopath, sadist, and got pleasure in humiliating young kids.
He would physically attack you with medicine balls, drop medicine balls on you when you were doing sit-ups. He had a bat he used to hit you with.
He used to cut the electric flex, and there was a thick electric flex that was mentioned in the trial, and he used to get you to hold the monkey bars, I think they're called monkey bars, and he'd smack you on the backside with that.
I've only got flashbacks of when he punched me, but I've seen I've seen terrible things. Younger boys crying.
Devaney was at Eastwood Park at the time of Home Secretary Willie Whitelaw's policy of the short, sharp shock for teenage convicts, tough treatment to discourage reoffending. Paul, Ian and Alan say this gave more sadistic officers like Devaney the green light to impose brutal violence, in effect state-certified torture on a generation of boys. But it was meant to be a place where you were rehabilitated.
I struggle with this because I don't know whoever came up with the idea of re-traumatising already traumatised kids, because most of the kids who went there were messed up anyway.
I suffered from mental illness over the years, alcoholism up until 1990. It affected my life without a shadow of a doubt.
All of these former inmates have gone on to live successful lives. They say that's in spite, not because of, the brutal treatment they received at the hands of Patrick Devaney.
I didn't have any angry thoughts, vicious thoughts, vengeance thoughts. I just felt sorry for the other boys, because my life is based on I forgive the guy. And that doesn't forgive him, but it empties him out of my head.
Tonight, these former inmates say they have justice, and other police forces are looking at other detention centres to see how far other officers went during the time of the short, sharp shock. Robert Murphy, ITV News.
Well, Robert is at Eastwood Park for us tonight, and Robert, many of Devaney's victims were in court today to see him face justice finally.
That's right. There was high emotion indeed in court today as victim after victim stood up and told Devaney face to face the impact of his abuse here in the 1970s has had on their lives. And as tears rolled down their cheeks, he just sat there in the dock looking straight ahead, impassive. His defence barrister stood up and described him as an upstanding member of the community, as a beloved husband and father and grandfather. But the judge said, well, yes, but these people don't know what he did at Eastwood Park in the 1970s. The judge told Devaney, you thought the sins of your past would never catch up with you. And he sentenced him to 3.5 years in prison. He said to him, you were a cruel man who derived sadistic pleasure from routinely abusing boys under your responsibility. So tonight, a man who spent so long abusing boys here at this detention centre is beginning his own spell behind bars as an old man, and the irony is not lost on any of his victims.
All right, Robert, at Eastwood Park in Gloucestershire. Thank you.